Okay, James, it's on you.
Okay, waiting to. All right, welcome everybody on Facebook Live on Leah Drake Stitt's Facebook, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition. And we're here again this Thursday. Welcome and glad you joined us. And here with my co-hosts Leah Drake Stitt and Thomas the Colonel Chapman. Hello, people.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, everything's going well. And we have a special guest with us, Mike Atchison. Did I get that right?
Atchison. Yep.
Atchison,
Close
Mike
Atchison.
enough.
Atchison. And he's a guest with us. And I first met Mike, I guess, about in 2014, 13, around in that area, when I was in the hospital going, and I was on Facebook quite a bit. And I don't know, I don't know if I joined his group or we just, um, had some things in common. We just started talking. We talked about our daughters, and his daughter was a little girl then, and now I understand she's getting ready to go to college. And but
Yep.
anyway, Mike, glad to see you. We've been talking off and on in Facebook over the years, and
hmm
sharing some ideas. Our ideas are different, and I wanted Mike to come on because Mike, well, he's self-proclaimed constitutionalist. And I guess a lot of other adjectives might go along with that. Consider yourself a Republican or a conservative, or the Constitution.
Actually, I kind of lean more towards libertarian. I look at things from the standpoint of Occam's razor. All points being equal, the simplest solution is always the right one. And a topic that's out now is gender, and all the different genders. I tend to look at that as say, constitutionalist or libertarian, that the lowest common denominator or the Occam's razor is there are two chromosomes, an X and a Y. A female has two X's and a male has an XY. Everything after that is open for interpretation, is art, really. And I just kind of look at it from the standpoint of when you're born, you either have an XX or an XY, and that's the smallest common denominator. That's the Occam's razor. And I look at politics in the same way. We've got a Bill of Rights, we've got a Constitution. A lot of times people say, this is a right or that is a right. Unless it's on that document, it's an idea or a law, but it's not an actual right when you look at it from the smallest common denominator of Occam's razor.
So, since you brought up gender and as far as being a constitutionalist, and how do you feel? And this can start a conversation. We can go a lot of different areas, and
Yeah, it's a dangerous topic. It's a
yeah,
dangerous topic.
yes. Well, I was going to get into what the Supreme Court did recently in turning over Roe versus Wade to the states
Right.
in order to the states to regulate what a woman does with her body. So how and how do you feel about that? And so we can just start the conversation here. And I'll say
Yeah,
this,
man.
one of the things I'll say this, and we talked about this. One of the things that's I think is good when you have two people, not two people, when you have people that have difference of opinions or different
hmm
ideologies, whether it be political or whatever. It's always good to have a conversation about it because when you have a group of people that everybody feels the same way, what are you accomplishing? So if you
Yeah.
have people that have different opinions, it's good to have those conversations so you can understand. You still might not agree, but you can understand why a certain person feels a certain way, and it might be reasons why they come to those conclusions. So talk
And
about
that is exactly why the states were created the way that the states were. And then it broken down into counties. Everything was supposed to be local because everyone does have different opinions. For instance, we've talked to, let's say we're all painters. We stand in a circle around a tree and we have an easel. We all have a different perspective on that tree. So every painting is going to be different, even though we're all looking at the same tree. So each of the states have different people with different ideals, different backgrounds. So let's say Utah, where you have a lot of Mormons, their faith is a certain way. Why should they have to follow the ideals of the people in New York from a federal standpoint? So this gives the opportunity of those people broken down to vote on their ideals. Let's say, Roe versus Wade, if you live in a blue state, if you're in California, nothing's going to change. And you could probably get abortion right up to birth, because that's that particular area, that state. Where, say, North Dakota, it's a different community, it's a different people, and the difference of opinions. That's why it's broken down in the state. And I hear a lot of people saying, what a lot of people don't realize is Roe versus Wade, when it was first passed, Jane Roe lied about being raped. And if you go and you research that, she lied. And later on in life, on her deathbed, she ended up being born again. She joined Christianity, and then she admitted that she'd made the whole thing up anyway. So I just thought that was interesting. I didn't know that until recently.
But she did also, to give it full context, she supported Roe versus Wade. And and so you got to give it full context on what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say that you're a constitutionist, and some of the people, and you look at the definition of a constitutionist, as someone who believes in the principle of limited government or individual rights.
Correct.
And we say that the Constitution is a living and breathing document, but constitutionalists, so-called constitutionalists, believe that over in the go back to the original intent or writings of the Constitution. And during that time, I was a slave, and most constitutionalists, in their true hearts, or some of, especially in the Confederate Party now, that they want to go back to the good old days, and they believe in, also they believe in less government and government by and individual rights. And that is one thing. And when we talk about individual rights, that was one of the big things with overturning Roe versus Wade, because they took away a woman's right to choose away from her. That it was defined in law over the last 50 years. And that is only the first step of taking our rights away.
Nothing has been taken away. It's just been sent back to the states to vote on.
It is
so all of that will be determined locally.
It has been taken away when in those states. That's why they had the trigger laws. So when you talk about red states or blue states, those constitutionalists like yourself, and we've created now, we have a two different sets of freedoms across the nation for women. If you live in a red state, you are basically held in legal slavery over what you can do with your own body.
Right. It's going to be based on length of time, from what I'm seeing. A lot of the legislation. I mean, it's not going to be.
No, they're not saying length of time anymore.
There's no length of time. It's legal. They're legally, especially the GOP and those Confederate legislatures that you have out there are passing laws that are keeping women as slaves over their own body. They can't make choices for their own bodies. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if you live in a blue state, you have you basically you can call it a free state. Now, the constitutionalists, and I'll use Ron Paul as even though he's a
Libertarian.
He talks about less government and we need to get out of the bedroom and this and that until the state of Kentucky needs some money when they have a hurricane or whatever, and then they got their hand out, which most of these red states do. We don't want you in our rooms. We don't want you to come down here, but if I need some money, federal government, where's my check?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it was set up in a certain way that you need government for certain things, but the government can get too large. I mean, you look at communism in China or Russia, where the state is the religion. You get into a situation where there really is no freedom. So there's got to be that common ground, in my opinion. You know, and I like what you said. Kind of ironically, my mother's from Ireland. She came over in 1969 as an au pair for a family in Alexandria, lived off the Potomac River. If you look up in Barbados, there's a group of people in Barbados called the Redlegs. They're descendants of Irish indentured servants. My mom's hometown, when Oliver Cromwell went into Drogheda, everyone fled to the church. He slaughtered a lot of people and took the rest as indentured service slaves, took them into Barbados. And they're called Redlegs because if you take an Irish person and you put them in the West Indies, they're going to be sunburned. But the street she grew up on was called Scarlet Street because that's the street that all the blood ran down from the castle. So I like what Thomas Sowell, I love reading his books. He's a senior fellow at Stanford. That, all people have been enslaved all through history. You look at the Mongols, you look at the Huns, you look at Alexander the Great, you look at what happened in Rome. And people have been enslaved across. The one thing I really appreciate about the Federalist Papers, not necessarily the Constitution, but the Federalist Papers, was it finally gave an avenue for people that said, okay, all men are created equal. It might take a little time, but those words in that Constitution did lead to the Emancipation Proclamation, did lead to civil rights movement. So everything was a progression. Washington owned slaves. In his will, he asked for his slaves to be free. Jefferson, same thing. Jefferson hated slavery, even though he did own some slaves. If you go and you read some of the stuff about how he wanted to advance, freedom. He started out, with 3/5 of a vote. Yeah, okay, that was pretty racist, but it was set up so that there'd be a progression. During that time, you had the Atlantic slave trade and the Saharan slave trade. If you do a little research on the Saharan slave trade, they were being sold by African human traffickers, really. The Saharan slave trade, the slaves were mutilated, had their genitals mutilated, and the men were castrated. And I think something like a third of them died on a trip. So I've seen Amistad, great movie, and that trip over was very harrowing. But you look at right now, you can buy a black man for $400 in Libya. So I want to see people like myself. I'm working with Sammy Mwanja. He owns Hands Mission. It's an orphanage in Kenya, working on a fundraiser, trying to get them a new water filtration system. The kids need a new water filtration system. But I want people to look at what's happening around the world now. Like I said, Libya, Saudi Arabia, the Uyghurs in China. So we've gotten to a point now where we can work together and continue that progression of what was started and get, freedom for people.
Mike, I have to say that
So you're talking about freedom in other countries. Is that what you're advocating?
In essence, yes. Yes. Because what's happening in Libya and what's happening with the Uyghurs in China, what's happening in Saudi Arabia, that's happening now. And it's
well documented. Show that.
Yeah, trafficking and everything. We're in a situation.
Mike, the sound, I don't know. I'm not hearing very well. Is anyone else having that problem?
I hear him well.
You well? Okay. Well, maybe it's me then. I'll just focus. But Mike, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No worries. No worries.
I just wanted to throw this in. Bringing it back to the American history. You mentioned those two guys, Washington and Jefferson, of course. Freed slaves once they died, and that's, to me, that's just like someone killing someone and then not paying for it until they die. And Washington actively chased slaves that tried to run away from him. So I don't want to give them too much credit. I'll give them credit where it's due as far as being good soldiers and all that. But when it comes down to slavery, I'm not going to give those two guys any kind of credit because they gave slave free slaves when they died. If they had
And you
freed
got
them
to
when
add
they
that,
were living. So, I just had to throw that in. That's just my feeling.
Jefferson, as well as many others, even fathered many of the children who became
Mhm.
slaves on their land. So
But once they were gone, a lot of other things happened. Uh, after that, and
Yeah, but you
no,
know
you
what?
can go. And I just wanted to throw that in because I just can't give those guys
If we
slavery
Yeah.
credit.
yeah, the Constitution was brought up, but the main forefathers lived by because slavery was the backbone of an economic system, and that's what they knew. And on their deathbed, they had a reckoning. So fast forward to the 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, who wanted to free the slaves and who actually did that. It wasn't until later on that
and Colonel, you have to mention he wanted to free them in order to save the Union. He said, if I could have done it any other way, I would not have freed them. So,
yes,
so.
So it was more like a War Hearts and Mission Mind.
yes, and there's a side effect. But you know what? In context, this same discussion of blue states, red states are trying to destroy America as we speak with a lot of the shenanigans what they did with January 6th and the Republican Party trying to take away people of color's votes and making it hard to vote and doing all this stuff that is anti-American. And they are and as Joe Biden is going to speak later on, I believe tonight or whenever he gives the his speech on our modern day fascists, and they don't care about America. And led by the ex-president, twice impeached traitor Trump down there in Mar-a-Lago.
No,
I
don't think. I mean, yeah,
he is the greatest threat to democracy in this world today, in my opinion.
What is a topic? What is a topic that's not a red issue or a blue issue, but is a red, white, and blue issue? The fentanyl crisis?
Say what now?
Is the fentanyl crisis something that red and white, instead of it being a red issue or a blue issue, it could be a red, white, and blue issue? Because I mean, right now, I'm very familiar with what's happening.
Yeah, this is one of the, it's an issue. Yes, fentanyl is a problem in the United States today. Yes.
A friend of mine is a former, well, I know somebody that I chat with occasionally is a former head of Special Operations Division, DEA. So I got a pretty good understanding of what this is, and I think people need to maybe be a little bit more aware of what it truly is, and why it is not a red issue or a blue issue, why it is a red, white, and blue issue. Back in 1999, you as a colonel, you probably know what I'm talking about. Two PLA military strategists wrote a book called Unrestricted Warfare. Chow Lin. It was a book that was written in how to defeat America through unrestricted methods. China right now is sending the precursors to the cartels. Luis Chaparro, who's a investigative journalist, actually was taken down, blindfolded, and taken into some of those labs down in China. Right now, what's happening is the Chinese chemists are teaching them how to cook a new drug that's going to become called isotonitazines or nitazines. This drug is 20 times stronger than fentanyl. So this is the important part that I've learned that people need to realize is this is a chemical warfare attack on America. We lost a little over 3,000 people on 9/11. We lost 110,000 people last year. This is a boiling frog scenario where if you take a frog and you put it in boiling water, it'll jump out.
Mhm.
But if you put it in lukewarm water and turn the stove on, it'll sit there until it cools to death. So what China and the cartels are doing is getting all our kids addicted. And they're actually, you can get what you think is maybe a Xanax or an Oxy, and it's got fentanyl in it. One pill can kill you. The overdoses are increasing because the dosages are increasing. So you get to a section where what happens if there's a situation, and from a military standpoint, they can all of a sudden send something over that's Jim Jones Kool-Aid and create a national health crisis that this country has never seen. And that border is wide open.
Okay,
A
so
lot of them,
yeah, okay, so we all know that there is a drug crisis, and the cartels are there to make money. So where it is manufactured in China, Mexico, or whoever, who cares? We know it's coming across somewhere. And actually, you know, and I know you want to go with this open board, you know, to discuss open borders, which is really not open borders. So what are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say that this is a chemical warfare attack. China is behind it, and it needs to be taken very, very, very seriously.
And the federal government's not taking it serious?
I don't believe they are. This Nitazene's DEA Washington field office just put out a warning on Nitazenes on June 1st. And it's, like I said, it's 20 times stronger than fentanyl. Like I said, I mean, this stuff is getting stronger and stronger. And even just on the street level, let's say this guy over here is selling the dope. This guy comes in on another street corner. He's got stronger stuff. Where are they going to go? The addicts are going to go to the guy with the stronger stuff. So this guy's going to go back to his cook and say, hey, I'm losing sales to this guy. Make myself stronger than his. And this guy's going to go, hey, I'm losing sales. Make my stronger. It just gets stronger and stronger that way as well. And then mixing it with the heroin. I think back before 2000, what was it? The Triangle in East Asia was the #1 producer of heroin. But now the #1 producer of heroin in the entire world is the Taliban. Gretchen Peters from CINTOC, Center for Illicit Network Transnational Organized Crime, and John Stevens from DEA wrote an article on SpyTalk.co probably about 6 months ago about Taliban. They're the largest heroin dealer in the world.
They're not dealing. You're talking about production. So yes, at one time in the Taliban, you know, we went over there. That was one of the side things of being in Afghanistan, that we had a drug addiction eradication program to try to stem the flow. But all this stuff that you're saying, you know, it's common knowledge that, yes, if I am a drug dealer and these kids out here want to get, and they are lacing pot or whatever with the newest drugs, that's just anybody could do. All the drug dealers are doing that. Now, how do we stem and how do we educate our populace to stay away from those drugs?
Yeah, what's the solution?
Yeah, what is the solution?
That's
What's
the
your
question.
solution?
Well,
I mean, you said you got all this research and quoted all these guys that you got off of what I see and or some you know.
Well, I see it as they got us by the balls. I mean, you understand hearts and minds. I mean, they operate Mexico on the hearts and minds philosophy. You know, they take care of their communities and neighborhoods. They run Mexico. Got all the
They don't
politicians in their
really run
pockets.
Mexico.
I'm having
The
difficulty.
sovereign
They
country.
control. Yeah,
They control a lot.
I think, in my opinion, I think they got us by the balls. I think
Yeah.
the solution is eventually a military solution.
And say, so we should invade Mexico or China?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if this gets to a point where we realize that this is a chemical warfare attack, this is a poisoning 300 Americans a day, and it's increasing Very soon it will be 400. After that, 500. At what point do we say that this is a chemical warfare attack on our country and we retaliate for our kids?
How do we retaliate? What do you call retaliate? What is the definition of retaliate?
Well, but here's the problem. If you name the cartels as terrorists, at this point you can now, which is what they are, and they're purchasing all kinds of crazy equipment now, but you designate them as terrorists. Now you can use different agencies other than the DEA. You can bring in agencies that work outside of the United States, whether it be covertly or advertly. But at this point, you can.
What's the answer? You're trying to say, okay.
I'm saying designate them as terrorists so that we can use the full force of what we have available to prevent what's essentially a chemical warfare attack on our children.
Just think if the attention that you're talking about had been paid to the drug warfare starting in the 60s and the 70s, and the population that it really affected, and the population that it's really affecting now. And
LSD,
that's a point I have to make.
LSD was actually created by the CIA. That was Sidney Gottlieb. Sidney Gottlieb was the poisoner in chief. Great book by Stephen Kinzer. He actually headed up the MK Ultra program, but he created that whole psychosomatic drug issue. They were doing all kinds of tests with LSD. He actually at one point purchased, I think it was made in Switzerland. He purchased all the LSD in the world at one point, and then they started creating more because he was just fascinated. It was a way that could possibly. They were interrogating somebody. He was on LSD, and they got him to tell the truth, and then he forgot that he told the truth, and so that's something that he got fascinated with. All the different psychosomatic drugs. He went all around the world getting like stuff from oysters and different mushrooms and all kinds of stuff to run these crazy experiments and create. He was the one that created the poisons for the CIA during that time frame. I mean, you get to the crack cocaine epidemic in the 80s. That was all done by CIA too. Air America.
Bring us back to Earth.
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier. About you have a family member that may be going to school in West Virginia. Am I correct?
Correct.
So I'm not, say, or you have a family member. So you going to West Virginia. Do you know the fentanyl crisis? They are one of the leading states in the fentanyl problem in this country.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
Yes.
That's why this is a concern of mine.
Yes.
That's why I'm becoming an activist in that issue. Because I only have so much time, but when I have my free time, that's my issue that I am concerned about.
Well, Mike, are you a part of a movement, a greater movement, of people that are bringing this? Well, like the Colonel said, we all know about this, but it's going to take a movement in order. Just like the Colonel said, what are you going to do? And
I mean, there's a group called Families of Fentanyl out there that people can look into. I'm trying to figure out ways of communicating with some other people. Like I said, the people I work with and meet, a lot of, some of my regulars are in that realm. So you spend some time talking about it. And it is an issue that is, even Biden has said it's a unique concern. And Mayorkas has said it's a unique concern. But nobody's really doing anything about it. They're just letting it get worse.
Nobody's doing it because you have these large federal agencies, the DEA and other and Homeland Security and all these, the infrastructure in the federal government has been, and FBI, all these folks are out here down to the local level are out here trying to stem the tide in the drug trade. So you can't.
I tell you, I know the DEA guys are frustrated. The DEA guys are incredible.
The 3 DEA agents that you know are frustrated.
One of them, was.
You cannot speak for the whole organization.
Guys, I'm gonna have to, I'm having hearing problems. I don't know if it's because my ear is infected or what, but I'm having difficulty hearing. I'm gonna go off video for a minute and see if I can do something to correct that situation, okay?
You have
Take care.
some earphone?
I'm gonna go and get some earphones
Yeah,
and see
earphones
what's up,
are
because
good.
I'm having
Earphones are-
difficulty hearing what's being said. So I'm gonna go off for 1 minute and I shall be right back, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say is you can't speak for the federal government or any large organization because you don't run that organization. And because you know a handful of agents or friends that are not in positions of responsibility, they don't speak for the organization and how things are going.
So I think, Mike, all the opportunities you get like this, to let your voice be heard, it's a tall hill to climb, a tall
Yeah,
mountain to climb. And because it's been going on for years, and now, like you're saying, now it's something that's
yeah.
that's
Well, I mean,
alarming.
cocaine and all that stuff has been around for a long time, but now this particular product is killing people at alarming rates.
That's just one product that's out there.
Well, no, there's more now. Nitazenes is 20 times stronger. Isotonidazenes, and you're going to need 3-4 cans of Narcan to bring an overdose victim back. This is poisoning at this point. I mean, like I said, we lost over 3,000 people in 9/11. We're losing 300 a day.
It doesn't come in cans. And I'm a retired nurse, and I've given out Narcan. Like,
yeah, it's the nose.
That's one way of doing it. You can also do it IV or whatever. I've given Narcan before on drug overdoses and also with for medications that we're trying to reverse and all that. But anybody with sense in chemistry, we could come up with a new or latest drug. And I know you've highlighted and you've got fixated on this one drug that's supposed to be is the new thing, but there'll be a new one out tomorrow.
Yeah, they found it on the syringes at the Navy shipyard back in November, and since then it's the new thing. It's what they're going to be moving across. Luis Shapiro was on with Sean Ryan recently.
No, which shipyard?
The Navy. I think it was a Navy shipyard. They had a mass overdose, and then the chemist.
Which one?
One in DC.
That's small.
Navy shipyard. The Navy shipyard. No, it was just a shipping yard, freight train shipping yard. What's the freight train shipping yard in DC called?
I'm drawing a blank because
wherever the freight trains come in, they had some people that mass overdose death, and the chemist, one of the guys that I ran around the course with, they found the nitazenes on the syringes. There's the only way to find it was through the chemist.
Where can I look that up? Is there an article? Was there an article published that I can look that up and verify that?
Go to November. Chemist finds nitazenes on syringes.
What's the November what?
November 2021.
And
chemists find nitazenes, Nitazenes. Chemists find nitazenes on syringes. I think that article's out.
I mean, who published it? Who published it? What's the
I can't. I
was it a credible article?
I know it was put out. I'm talking about the guy that I know, the chemist that works there. He was telling me about it, and I did look it up, but it is out there. It's from November 2021. And then there's a couple other articles on nitazenes, and then Jared Forget at Washington DEA field office, they put out a warning on June 1st, federal warning. And then there was some overdose in Florida, and Pasco County did an actual news article, like a live news media thing on it, and they took it really serious because this thing is it's poison. It's Jim Jones Kool-Aid.
It's NIT what?
NITA.
Okay.
Nitazenes, Z-E-N-E-S. The actual name is isotonitazines. And it's basically it's a 60-year-old painkiller. It was designed to be like something similar to morphine or stronger, from what my understanding is. But I've actually found a video online of a kid that there was only 2 or 3 people, and he took 2 hits of it, and he OD'd right there online, and it was quick. It was like that. It was only 2 hits.
Mm. So it looks like some education is due there
Yeah,
too. Uh,
yeah,
and
it's pretty.
we appreciate you bringing that up. And I would also encourage people watching to, because I would be I would want to know how locally how that's being how we're being affected locally here in Hampton Road,
Right.
Virginia,
Hmm.
all
And it can
together.
only be discovered uh, in a chemist. It appears to be fentanyl, but then once it's forensically investigated, it finds out that it's nitazenes, and that's where the strength is. It first started showing up in Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, and those were the only 3 places originally that it started showing up, and now it's starting to show up everywhere,
Yeah,
slowly, gradually
is it a
increasing
certain
and going
age
from.
group that
They
involved with
call
it?
it the street. Yeah, the street name is ISO.
Mhm.
And yeah, and this stuff is, I mean, there needs to be some education on it, because this stuff is dangerous. The street name is ISO.
Okay, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I hope that sparks some conversation amongst our listeners, or they would look it up and for themselves and make sure that they're aware that this drug. I mean, we've been hearing it, bits and pieces on the news and everything, but to get deep into it, as far as how many people it's affecting and how locally, like I said, and you know,
Right,
as
and how
college
it's
campuses,
progressing.
I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and you read every Chinese warfare book, I mean, you get into Sun Tzu, The Art of War, you get into The Prince, you get into the Book of 5 Rings. I mean, any kind of military strategist is about patience and death by 1,000 bites. I mean, they even have the book, The 1,000-Year Marathon, which is their 100-year plan, basically 100-year marathon, 100-year plan. I think Michael Pillsbury wrote that book, and even Graham Allison, who's a political scientist at Harvard, wrote a book called Destined for War about Thucydides' trap. Thucydides' trap is when a rising superpower threatens to overtake a current superpower, war is inevitable. But with the weapons that we have right now, this can be pretty devastating. So there's a different way of fighting a war. It's a war, it's unrestricted warfare, and this needs to be looked at from that standpoint of it being a chemical warfare attack, because it's death by 1,000 bites, and more kids are dying every day, and nobody's noticing it because it's progressing so slowly.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Mike. And let me
My
say
pleasure.
this. Let me say this. And you mentioned earlier, and that's why you wanted to talk about this, because it's a red, white, and blue thing. And even though we have
Right.
a red and white, not red, red and blue thing going on with the states or with the
Mm-hmm.
Democrats and the Republicans, the people that are affected by what's going on between these two parties are red, white, and blue, the people that are
Absolutely.
being
And
affected. So, what I want
American first.
to discuss now, especially, I don't know if you are a strong supporter of Trump, or if you have been, but I mean, do you feel? Is it time for him to
He's like a
go away?
character.
You know, I mean,
He's like a character on a reality show. I actually personally, I like Pompeo. He is a former CIA director, Secretary of State. He's #1 at West Point. He's a guy that has been through it, and he's not a character. He's not up there trying to do stand-up comedy. He just created a CAV pack, American Values pack, and that's kind of, I think, the one that I'm going to be getting behind in 2024.
You know, I ask you that because I know maybe some people you've been around that are true Trumpers. I mean, I just would want to get into their head, just
You see,
figure out
he,
what is it, you know, and I think he's going to go down. You know, a lot of people say, well, he's still going to walk, but I think the more days go by and he opens his mouth, he's going to go down eventually, and it's going to make history as a
he
president.
just pissed off. He pissed off some of the wrong people, and I don't know if he's really done a whole lot wrong. I mean, like I said, he's a character. There's people that run things in a way that we probably don't even understand. But yeah, he's just too polarizing. I mean, there's like you said, a love, but then there's also the hate. We need to get away from division in this country. We need to really come together as Americans. Like I said, I try to find issues that are red, white, and blue. And basically, anytime Marx or socialism or communism has taken over a country, the first thing was to divide and conquer. And we've seen a lot of that. What happened when Mao took over in China, or even some of the stuff that Stalin, or even the Stasi in East Germany with the censorship and everything. I see some of that creeping in slowly as well, and we've got to keep an eyesight on it.
You don't have to
we got
go
to keep an eye
abroad.
on it.
You don't have to go abroad.
Yeah.
We see that happening right here, and I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of them were influenced by that. That they were influenced by what's inside of them right here in the United States. You know, not all of them are
Exactly, and
reading
it's
Chinese
infiltration.
literature like you are.
Well, a lot of people don't know the KGB. It's not like Bond 007 or anything like that. Their main thing is infiltration. I mean, there's a guy, if you want to look up something interesting, look up Yuri Bezmenov. He was a KGB defector. He got an interview a long time ago. And then also another one is Lily Teng Williams. She's running for office as a Republican. She grew up in now China, and she escaped China with $100 in her pocket, and now she's running for office as a Republican locally. I think she was interviewed on the Sugar Graham show, and she talks about what it was like under Mao, under that communism. And Yuri Bezmenov, he defected, and he explains what the infiltration is like. And if you listen to it and then you look, you can see it in some places. And it's a little scary because if it catches on, it grows like a forest fire.
Well, you know what? You say if it catches on, it has already caught on.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and gasoline over the last during the Trump administration, and that it really flourished under the Trump administration. And they have, some people have said that you've read about this, since you're a learned man, that man has read. Trump was the KGB's Manchurian candidate versus he was a useful fool, and they're one and the same.
Well, yeah, and that's one thing that communists is useful idiot. They get people to do their bidding, but then what those people don't realize is once communism manifests and takes over, those people that they used become the first ones eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at even today, some Russian oligarch that was running the thing. He fell off the a 6-story building today. And
Well, what happened to Jack Ma at Alibaba?
Mm-hmm.
Where's he at? He made all that money. Where'd he go?
Mm-hmm. Gotta go.
So
Gotta go. Clean house.
Yeah. Yep. So.
Leah, you hearing this, brother?
I'm hearing bits and pieces. I'm thinking that I really have an ear infection because I'm catching bits and pieces of the conversation. I'm not hearing the whole thing. So I'm going to have to go back and look at this on YouTube so I can get a better feel as to what was discussed at this time, because I'm missing. I thought it was within the computer, but each of you are hearing fine. And it seems as though those on Facebook are hearing fine, but for some reason, I'm not hearing.
Yeah. You said you had some draining issues, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry,
gentlemen,
I'm sorry.
No problem. I had a long day. I'm gonna I've got to get some food in me. And get to bed. I got to be back up at the club tomorrow, pretty early. So I've had a pleasure speaking with you, and thanks for letting me get a couple things out that I wanted to get out. And if you ever want me back again, I'd be happy to come back. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, we appreciate you accepting our invitation, and you're welcome to come back anytime. But and hopefully, since you had a chance to discuss, the fentanyl issue, we can get into some more issues and more in depth.
Absolutely. Yep. I just really wanted to get that out there, what I've learned. I don't know if I told anybody, I work at at a golf course in DC, so I overhear a lot of things on the Coconut Telegraph, and that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were looking for, But no problem with you. If you have a passion for something, no problem you getting that word out. But like I said, we're gonna have you back because we need to hear both sides of issues,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes
Yep.
sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't. So,
but Mike, and I'll echo what Slim said, but I will go back to the issue of drugs and fentanyl, cocaine, whatever drugs out there, and all the designer drugs that are coming out in the future. So the bottom line is, if you take drugs, you take it at your own risk.
Well, yeah, but at this point, a lot of these pills are being laced with fentanyl, and they think they're getting something else. So
yes,
that's a murder. That's a murder. That's a poisoning.
You take it at someone and your own peril.
Right. You make sure you get it from your doctor. And when you're speaking about getting it from your doctor, who paid the largest criminal fine in United States history?
Yes.
Pfizer. So even there, I think they just got fined again. So it's scary. I mean, it's the synthetics and all that stuff. So I mean, there's got to be a solution, and it has to start, I think, at the local levels with awareness, and spread out from there with tentacles.
Yes. So we need better drug education, but now that things are now the way we've dumbed down our educational processes in the high school, junior highs, and high schools, we've dumbed it down. You can't really say a lot of, or you have to parse it when we're talking about drugs and things, and a lot of the educational systems across the country.
Yeah,
we don't want to.
I mean, it's just it is what it is right now. But I mean, it everything can be changed through baby steps. Like I said, it took way too long for the civil rights movement to happen, but it all happened through baby steps, and it happened. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, that's just, you got to move in the positive direction. I mean, I'm a man of Jesus, and I believe that there is good and evil in the world. And the more evil you put out, the more evil comes back to you, and the more good you put out, the more good comes back to you. So,
well, you know what? You said a mouthful when you said about the baby steps in the civil rights movement, because I'm always exposed that we need a new civil rights movement, because those same steps that were achieved in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and now in the 90s, and now in the 20s, are being taken away from us as we speak.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of rights. I mean, the censorship and there's a lot of goofy stuff just going on where people are having a hard time understanding the difference between reality and fantasy, because it's so much stuff that's being pumped out, since we've got so much information available, but people are getting dumber. I look at that movie. What movie was it? Idiocracy. Idiocracy. In a time where we've got so much information available. I mean, just so much. People are making dance videos on TikTok. They're all doing the same little dance video. And there's books, there's free books. There's a Library of Congress, there's archive.org. You got Mount Pony over here with all the audio visual. There's so much to learn, and it's all available through this little magic black box. And the kids are getting dumber. How is that possible? When all of it's right there, you go learn anything you want to. You don't need to go to school.
Information at your fingertips.
All of it. It just blows me away. But guys, I do got to get going. Gotta get some food. I gotta get some food in my belly.
Well, Mike,
So
Mike, on my behalf, I do apologize. I have been sort of not hearing, but I promise you that I will go back and I will listen. And I want to thank you for agreeing to come on. And I'm hoping that you would choose to come back on at a
Yes,
time when
absolutely.
I can hear what's being said. So, but I just want
Yeah.
to thank you. I want to thank you so very much for agreeing. Like you say, in as much as we may not always agree on every situation or
Right.
most situations, but the main thing is that we learn to have a conversation about it
Right.
and not get
Respectfully.
respectfully. Exactly. So I promise
Yeah, and
you,
that's it. I told James once, I said, there's 100 topics we might disagree on one. That's what happens online is people disagree on one topic and then the argument starts over that when there's also 99 other topics that they agree on.
Agree on.
and it severs
And they ignore
relationships.
them.
And it
Yeah.
severs relationships, So
Exactly.
yeah, so
So,
I
so
thank you once again. I thank you for coming on, and
my pleasure. My
I
pleasure.
look forward to your coming back on again.
yes.
Thanks, Colonel. Nice meeting you.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'll be in touch, Mike, and just
Yes.
keep sending me your little voice messages and your
Oh, my little
I don't know. Yeah, I was
research.
gonna say literature.
My
Yeah,
little
your
research
research.
findings. I tell you what, the memory hole. There's a group of us that basically putting stuff up on group of people are putting stuff up on there. It's a lot of documentary, audio, visual stuff. It's history. It's called the Memory Hole on YouTube.
It's called the memory what?
Memory
The Memory
hole.
Hole. The
Hole,
Memory Hole. Yep.
like
The Memory Hole.
HOLE,
HOLE.
memory
And
hole.
Memory
And
Hole. Yeah, and a
it's
lot of
it's on Facebook,
it's on YouTube.
on YouTube.
Yep, it's all stuff from Library of Congress.
Okay.
Yep. Audio visual
And
Library of Congress.
and I'll send you some literature that I want you to check out, especially
Absolutely.
from some of our previous guests that we had on have written books about
Okay.
slavery. There might be some things in there that you might not be familiar with. You might know some of the basic things, but some of these books really get deep into it. And I think when it comes down to slavery, we shouldn't be the only one reading
Right.
those books.
And that's why the book's always better than the movie because it gets down into the detail. It
Into the
gets into the
details.
guts.
Indeed.
Into the guts.
All right,
All
but
right,
I'll send
guys.
you that. We exchange information like that way, but we'll be in touch. Thanks again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
brother.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
See you, Mike.
My pleasure.
See you, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Wait a minute, James Colonel. Let me go out of here. My ear is.
And
Wait a minute.